Well, good morning. This is John Dingfelder. You're listening to WMNF, and this is Down and Dirty. I'm joined here by Lynn Marvin Dingfelder, a lady that I hang out with every now and then. Good morning, Lynn.
Hopefully so. Hi, honey.
How's your day so far?
It's early.
It's always early in Philadelphia or something like that. We have a great guest today.
It's a part of a series.
It is a part of the series. As you've heard about and read, the City of Tampa mayor's race is heating up with 11 candidates filing or interested or whatever.
11 have filed, and there's rumors to maybe be more.
It's amazing. And we have one of them in the studio today as our guest. We will introduce him with this little soundbite from his campaign.
Hey boys, exciting news. I'm officially running for mayor.
Cool. My dad's been on city council for 8 years. We've heard all his stories.
Wait, if you're mayor, does that mean we get to speak on the airport train?
Please wait for the next train.
We'll put our name really big on a building?
No, boys, that would be obnoxious. On city council, I saw the mismanagement firsthand. The last two mayors ignored our infrastructure, then they overspent and overbuilt on pet projects.
We already like you. Tell them.
I'm Bill Carlson. My journey started at the University of Tampa and took me all the way to Singapore.
No, talk about Tampa.
I've grown my company in the heart of Ybor City, working with hundreds of local businesses. But I also personally invest in the community. I co-founded Cafe Con Tampa and the Arts Alliance. We don't need government to build everything for us, but we need strong city leaders as partners. I'm running for mayor for the little guys, not the establishment.
Don't let this cute little guy down. Vote for my dad. It's not cute or little anymore.
Vote Carlson! Vote Carlson!
A paid political advertisement, no, an unpaid political advertisement by Bill Carlson.
And our special guest is
Our special guest?
Bill Carlson.
Oh, Bill Carlson.
Good morning. It's great to spend the morning with two of my favorite people. I'm excited.
I thought you were talking about his mom, who's joined us in the studio.
And my mom's sitting here too. Hi, Mom.
Bill Carlson, it's good to see you. You're the first of many who are going to join us here and talk about their aspirations to be mayor of the city of Tampa. And just a little background on Bill Carlson. I'll let you tell it yourself, Bill, but Bill was born in a very small town over in south central Florida, Belglade, and raised in Sebring. Most of you know Sebring from the racetrack over there, but I'm sure it was a sweet little town. He came over to Tampa, the big city, to the University of Tampa. Somehow ended up at Harvard with an master's in public administration, but more importantly, at some point along the line, he became a Star Wars freak. One thing I like about your background, Bill, is there's a lot of down-to-earth stuff. Being raised in Sebring, and I mean that's real Florida. That's cracker country, right?
Yeah, and I always tell people Sebring is in the Tampa Bay media market. So we grew up reading the Tampa Tribune, listening to the same radio stations, TV stations, watching Creature Feature on Saturday mornings, and then the only place we could shop is at that time downtown Tampa. Later it was East Lake Mall, Tampa Bay Center, University Mall, and so I say that Sebring is kind of like Plant City but farther away. So we're connected to the whole Tampa history and culture.
And you've witnessed the growth firsthand.
Yeah, and the first place I saw Star Wars was in Tampa. I thought it was with a Cub Scout group. I thought it was at Tampa Theater, but when Tampa Theater played it a couple years ago for the first time, I sponsored it, by the way, for fun. And it turns out it was never shown there originally. It was shown somewhere else. So I'm not exactly sure where I showed it.
Maybe it was Britain Plaza or something.
Yeah, maybe somebody can call in and tell us. But remember the USS Requin?
Sure. The submarine on the river.
I remember that.
Yeah, so we got to tour the Requin, and I think it's been gone 20 years or more now. But great memories.
Yeah, I don't think it's sunk in the river. I think they dragged it away.
I think they moved it somewhere else.
They dragged it away somewhere else before it sank.
So I think the really big question is why? Why are you running for mayor?
Over the years, a lot of people have invested in me. I went to Singapore for a year to study in the MBA program, and I was sponsored by the Rotary clubs in the area. When I grew up, I didn't have a lot of money to travel, and the Rotary clubs came to me and said, would you like to go overseas, all expenses paid for a year? And some of the key Rotarians who supported me were the ones in your club, You remember Bill Leonard,
of course,
Lou Kaminga, and others, Jose Valiente.
in the Ybor City Rotary Club.
Yeah, Ybor Club. And they became mentors to me. And not only did they support me to go to Singapore, but then they always asked me to come give speeches. They mentored me over the years. They helped me with my career. And many of the Rotarians who sponsored me are no longer around, but they believed that I could do something better for the community. Do you remember a program called S4TL, Seminar for Tomorrow's Leaders?
Absolutely.
So in 10th grade, Rotarians approached me and said, would you like to do this? I don't remember whether it was a week or 2 weeks, but it was at USF, and we learned about leadership.
Because Sebring is in our district,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, so I went through S4TL leadership training program. I helped start the Interact Club at my school, was involved with Rotary in lots of ways, traveled all over Asia giving speeches to Rotary clubs, and it became a big part of my life. And so I feel indebted to the Rotarians and others who invested in me over the years.
The motto of Rotary being
service above self.
service above self.
And so, they
You
paid
guys
it.
exemplify that. I just want to say the both of you.
Thank
really.
you. They paid it forward by investing in me and many, many others. And every day when I wake up, I think about the investment they made in me, and I think about how I need to pay that back.
Bill, as we heard on your commercial, you've got 3 boys. How old are they now?
They just turned, so now they're 16, 17, and 24.
Wow.
They're really growing
We
up.
watched them grow
It
up.
goes too fast.
Grandma, they're really growing up. Huh? But anyway, but what do you impart to them in terms of service above self and that sort of thing? I'm sure they see you walk the walk.
Sure, by example.
Yeah, and I think the best thing is by example. A couple years ago, my oldest son said that as he was getting involved in something, I said, well, how did you know how to do this in business and in the community? He said, well, remember when I was a kid, you used to drag me to the coffee meetings and lunch meetings, and I would sit there and play on my phone? I said, yeah. He said, well, I was actually listening while I was playing on the phone. And so I think it is really important, the example you give. My oldest son has been very involved in Best Buddies and other nonprofits. My middle son started a couple different clubs at Plant. My youngest son is working on programs too. And it's just part of our passion to give back to the community. It's part of the DNA of who we are.
Very nice. One of the things that jumped out at me, you often talk about Singapore and your experience in Singapore. And I don't know if you studied government there. You always are very admiring of Singapore and how well it works. But one of the other things that jumped out at me is 100 countries visited. I'm not sure I visited 100 cities around this country, but 100 countries visited. How did that happen, and what's your take on that?
Well, the beginning of it was all Rotary. Without Rotary, I wouldn't have been out there in the first place. And in the 4 years that I stayed after I went to school, I worked all over Asia and was able to fly around. So I went from studying the Singapore government and governments in the region to being a consultant to them.
Yeah. And speaking of consultant, when you came back to Tampa, you joined Tucker Hall, a public relations firm, and ultimately have been the president and CEO of Tucker Hall for a couple of decades, I guess. Does anybody, and we're friends, Bill, and everybody knows we're friends, but we are going to ask some tough questions, and that's why, you can expect that. But, are there conflicts of interest that arise? You're representing big corporations as a public relations, some other local governments and that sort of thing. Are there conflicts that have arisen over the last couple of years that you've been on Tampa City Council or that you anticipate? And will you have to step down in that position if you win for mayor?
Well, first of all, when I filed to run for office, I stopped taking any clients that had anything to do with the city of Tampa. So
that was, 8 years ago?
Yeah, 9 years ago when I first filed to run. And we had a handful of legacy clients. But what happens is that if we have offices around the state, and if one of our other offices is working with Company A, and Company A does business with Company B, and Company B does business in Tampa, it might not be a direct conflict, but I'll recuse myself anyway, because one of my main things is to try to bring good government back to Tampa and to get rid of the conflicts of interest. And the only thing they've accused me of is recusing myself too many times. But I do it because I want to make sure that there's no perception of a conflict, even if there is or not. And so I think that there are other people that should do that more often. other elected officials should conflict. And one of the problems with this position of mayor is there isn't a way to easily recuse yourself. I tried to create a process so mayors could recuse themselves, but this administration has fought that.
That's an interesting concept. I never thought about that city council has to do that or should do that, but yet the mayor doesn't.
So it's not a secret that over the last few years I've handed off day-to-day management of our firm to one of my partners at our firm, and when I win in a year, I'm going to sell my shares back to the firm. So I'm not going to be connected to that firm at all in a year. I won't have any conflicts of interest at all. And I shouldn't do that for financial reasons, but I'm doing it because I don't want to repeat some of the mistakes that other people have made in the past.
Okay. Unlike our president, you won't have any conflicts of interest.
Don't start with that. Well, that's a rabbit hole.
So I read when you've ultimately announced in the last week or two, you mentioned 3 words: discipline, transparency, and competence. Let's elaborate a little bit on those.
So one thing is we need to have measurements in government, and the measurements need to be related to outcomes with the people of the community. And too often the measures in government are about process instead. And we need to make government outward facing so that we're looking at benefits to the community, not, if we're looking for...
But Bill, I've read about these measurements. They say we're the greatest city to, since sliced bread and what do you call those? Vanity
rankings. Yeah.
Rankings.
Because magazines around the country try to sell themselves by having these vanity rankings. They make them up. By the way, they're almost always regional data, not Tampa data. And when I came back from Singapore, I spent a lot of time in St. Petersburg. St. Pete was a client for a while. And we developed the art scene and the innovation scene in St. Pete. And
who was the mayor then?
It was Fisher and then Baker and then Kreisman most recently I worked with. And I was one of the co-founders of the EDC in St. Pete, and we did it differently than Hillsborough. And if you look
Economic Development Council.
Yeah, Economic Development Council. And the secret of St. Pete is that the economy is based on the innovation art scene, and many countries around the world are copying that. And in Tampa, we want to do the same thing. You and I, when we started 8 years ago, pushed for heavy investments in the arts to try to activate downtown and also create an innovation scene. In Ybor City, a group of us pushed to get an arts area in Ybor, which is now the Crest Contemporary Building. I've been taking private equity people in there to show them why they need to invest their portfolio companies in, because the ultimate thing is that we can't subsidize our way ahead of inflation. What we can do is help the people of our community earn more money, and it's our obligation to bring better jobs to them, not subsidize out-of-state, low-paying jobs like we've been doing in the past.
And there's something about the arts community that when it comes in, it's not just joyous. It's interesting. It's unique. It brings in tourism. And I just think, I remember, Ybor has struggled over the years in trying to be that arts community. Remember when Paul Wilborn worked with Mayor Pam and was trying to have special housing for artists?
Revitalize.
Yeah. But we've seen this over the years, where there's...
kind of comes and goes.
But I believe that Bill could do that. If anyone has supported the arts... It's really you. You
have to get to know the people. So I was a co-founder of the Tampa Arts Alliance with Neil Gobioff and Michelle Smith, and the purpose there was to build up the grassroots arts movement in Tampa. The arts had been decimated for 8 years before I got on council. And you and I, John, brought, instead of using CRA money to subsidize developers, which I think is anti-competitive, we heavily subsidize the arts. And now we've got hundreds of millions of investment in the arts going on in downtown Tampa. And the city, through the CRA, is paying like 25 cents on the dollar, which is an incredibly good deal. And through that, we're going to activate downtown and build economic.
To elaborate on that a little bit, and some people object to it, that we've helped, we being the CRA when I was on it, that you're on, helped revitalize the Strauss Center, which is actually city-owned property, right? Revitalize the Tampa Museum of Art. which is city related.
City owned. The building is city owned. Yeah.
And also the theater,
Tampa Theater.
Theater.
Those are two major arts projects. But those in turn work with smaller groups, don't they? I mean, they're
all three of those facilities are owned by the city and operated by nonprofits that add matching money. So Strass Center, which the current mayor eviscerated when you and I made the proposal, they're getting the CRA was paying 25 cents on the dollar, and so the private sector is bringing in $75-80 million on top of the operating expenses. And guess what? The city will own all $100 million of the improvement. And what downtown missed, what people from St. Pete would come to Tampa just a few years ago and say, well, you got a lot of pretty buildings, but you haven't activated downtown. Well, the arts have been activating downtown Tampa since the 80s. What we've done now is we've given them an adrenaline shot. And the Tampa Theater, which is beloved by everyone, now is being renovated because of the work we did, is being renovated for the next 100 years. Yeah. So our great-great-grandkids will get to go to the Tampa Theater and enjoy it like our great-great-grandparents did.
See the stars in the ceiling. I hope they keep the organ. Are they going to keep the organ?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah. They're restoring it. And, one of the things they'll tell you is that in the 80s, somebody took a hose and spray washed the plaster characters in there.
Oh, my God.
And they redid the ones in the lobby a few years ago before they got attacked politically. And now they're going to be able to go through and restore all the plaster figures. It will all look brand new.
Beautiful.
And restored by people who specialize in restoring those historic theaters.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to WMNF. This show is Down and Dirty. I'm here with my partner in life and partner on the show, Lynn Marvin Dingfelder. And our special guest is Tampa City Councilman Bill Carlson, who is also a candidate for mayor.
One of 11.
One of 11. And we're going to have all 11 of them on our show.
God willing. We're trying.
Over the next 5 or 6
put
months.
It out there.
And I'm excited about that, by the way. I think I've talked to most of them, and I think having 11 people or 12 or 13 is going to be good for the community because they all have different perspectives. Example, Alan Henderson. I don't know if you all met him, but brilliant guy, great ideas, motivational, charismatic, and you may think it's stupid to talk about a competitor, but I really like his energy, and the others all have good ideas, and so in the discourse, hopefully we'll have a discussion about ideas, and somebody may take it personal and dirty, but what I hope we'll do is talk about how to make this community better, because each of us represents a different perspective in the community. And if we bring all those perspectives together at the end of the campaign, hopefully we'll all be able to address those issues to make our community even better than it is.
And Bill, wouldn't it be great if you, let's say if you won, that you kept those people on in an informal way as sort of your little kitchen cabinet to keep giving you those ideas and keep giving you input. If you're just tuning in, you can join the conversation at 813-239-9663.
Speaking of input, give us a call and let us know what you think, or if you have a question for Bill Carlson, I'm sure he'd be glad to take it. Bill, it's over the years, different mayors have brought in different styles. I remember being a reporter covering Bob Martinez, and he was the former union leader was warm and friendly, certainly a local, but very structured. Mayor Sandy Friedman was wonderful in terms of neighborhood outreach and started all the neighborhood groups, to her credit. Certainly we know Greco, beloved by all and very local. Everyone had their style. Mayor Pam was a little bit more structured. And what is your style? What do you bring and your main focus with that?
Well, the other thing that's happened in Tampa, typically we'll have a pro-neighborhood mayor and then a pro-development mayor.
And, you mean that switch off?
Yeah, and
that's interesting.
And now we've had 2 pro-development mayors. And I'm also pro-development, but I'm really pro-neighborhood because economic development has changed. Tampa is still doing economic development the way most cities did in the 80s, and that is to subsidize buildings from out of state. Developers come in from out of state, and they They even hire contractors from out of the area. And so where's the money going and where's the subsidy going? It's not helping us. There's no major city in the world that says, guess what? We just got a new condo. Now we're a great city. Mm-hmm. What they say instead is, how does all this affect our people? And subsidizing low-end jobs from out of state is not a good idea either. What I want to do is focus on results that matter for the people. I created a website called TampaScorecard.com about 8 years ago with USF. The dean of the College of Business, Moaz, who's now the president.
You got to give a shout out to Jason Marlowe, who helped you on the first scorecard.
And what we did is we measured the top 10 indicators, and we kept it simple on purpose, that great cities measure, not regional data. The Tampa Bay Partnership puts out regional data working with the USF. This is city data. And what it shows is that St. Pete excelled compared to Tampa. And we weren't even moving in the same direction as cities like Charlotte, Atlanta, and Austin. So we need to listen to positive PR. We need to be champions for our community. But the city doesn't need cheerleaders. What we need is quarterbacks. We need coaches who can help motivate our staff to do a great job for our community.
Bill Carlson, I looked at the scorecard. It is on your website, at least all the way up to 2024. Perhaps there's updates coming.
We've got an update we're about to put out.
Good. I want to talk about that a little bit because there's some interesting, data that you've analyzed there. It looks like Tampa's doing pretty well. Crime. It looks like our crime statistics are down, and kudos to TPD in that regard. Hopefully, they're doing it without infringing on too many civil liberties and civil rights.
Without ICE.
Without ICE and without what is it? Bicycling while black.
Well, the thing is, now we have Chief Burkall, and he's implementing what he calls the Burkall Plan. No organization is perfect, but crime has gone down, and
violent crime,
and they're not. And as far as we can tell, they're not committing the same civil rights violations that were committed before. And the order to commit civil rights violations doesn't come from the average police officer. The police officers are trained well and they want to do the right thing. But when an administration pushes them to commit civil rights violations, it hurts the whole city. It hurts our reputation. We had under the last administration, we had 3 United States Justice Department civil rights investigations. One of them just recently was settled, and we taxpayers had to pay $400,000.
Wow. I don't think I read about that one. Well, anyway, going back to your scorecard, it looks like some of our other statistics are, in terms of the average income for the residents of the city of Tampa is doing better and that sort of thing. But, and here's a large but, it looks like women and African Americans continue to lag way behind, and that we have a high percentage of our residents in the city of Tampa who are below the poverty level. I want you not only to talk about that, but I want to know specifically, or we want to know specifically, or the voters want to know specifically, how, as mayor, can you affect any of that?
Well, we did it in St. Pete. That's why St. Pete is doing so well. And I was a part of it, not the only person. But and Singapore obviously does a great job of it as well. What we need to do is have better policies that focus on people instead of buildings. That's the thing. If we have what I call the edifice complex, where we measure success by buildings, we'll never be successful. We need to measure success with things like this. What the stats show is that per capita income is high, but when you separate the data, what we found is that there's an abnormally high percentage of people over $200,000 a year in Tampa, and so that skews the data. And what it hides is that most of the last 15 years, the middle class shrank or stayed even in Tampa, and the people in poverty grew. And the disparities between blacks and whites and men and women are some of the worst in the state. In fact, when I was presenting,
did I read that correctly? Like $40,000 disparity? Did I read that right?
I've been looking at several of them recently, so I don't remember the exact number on that. But one number, by the way, it's so bad that when USF presented with me a few years ago, they said, our strategy can no longer be to say, thank God that Miami's worse than we are, because we're 5th instead of 6th. And we can say all the positive things we want about how great Tampa is, and it's a fantastic place, or we all wouldn't live here. But we need to, every organization has issues it needs to deal with. An example I give is, imagine if your kid has 5 A's and a C. You can tell them, congratulations, that's great that you're making 5 A's. And you can go to all the other parents and say, my kid made 5 A's. But it doesn't mean you're not going to talk to the kid and say, you need to fix that C. you have to address the issues that are a problem. And in this case, the disparity issues and the poverty issues are terrible. One of the biggest issues of wealth and success in a community, intergenerational wealth, is owning your own home. And in Singapore, we can't copy their model, but their home ownership rate is 94%. The state average in Florida is 65%. St. Pete is 59%, and Tampa is 49%. African American home ownership is 39%. These are things that are not difficult to fix. Ernest Coney from the CDC told me a couple years ago, at that time, there were 2,000 families that had gone through the HUD-approved training program to buy a house, but there wasn't inventory on the market. And so we need to fix that inventory. You'll remember, I think when you were still in council, I made a motion to move 30% of the CRA money into affordable housing. That created the biggest fund that Tampa or Hillsborough County have ever created.
Were you successful in that? Because
Yeah.
that was right when I was leaving.
It's been in place several years. The problem is getting the administration to spend it correctly and spend it equitably. And the problem is that if you call affordable housing 140% AMI, 80% AMI, I think that's average median income is about $80,000 right now, or $100,000 for a family of four. If you target subsidizing housing above that, you're subsidizing market rate. What we need to do is help people who are earning $30,000 a year or $40,000 a year. And what we need to do
that will really change lives.
What we need to do is partner with the private sector to do that. The other thing is that families tell us they don't need studios; they need 2 and 3 bedroom units so they can have their kids in there.
Absolutely.
And that's the kind of thing we're focused on. And the administration pushes back and says, "Well, it costs a lot more." Yes, but I just had an employer complain to me yesterday that now his employees have to live way out in Hillsborough County because the last administration tore down 2,000 affordable homes and didn't replace them.
And today, with the price of gas, that must be very costly for them to have to drive in and come in.
Not just way out in Hillsborough County, but Pasco and Polk and et cetera, et
Johnny,
cetera.
do we have calls?
We do have a call. Skip, can you bring that call in?
Thanks, Skip.
I think we all might know this person.
Good morning.
We got Miss Connie from Tampa.
Hey, Connie.
Yes. Good morning, and thank you so much. And, of course, it's 11 people that's running. One can be eliminated, but I won't call their name. But let me just say this. I think Bill has been spot on, from that council, just trying to push the council and the administration to see the global picture of what's happening in Tampa. And while it looks good on paper, there's a lot of hopelessness that exists in these impoverished neighborhoods, East Tampa, Silver Springs, young people dying on the street from gun violence. People don't have affordable housing. So I am just hoping that people that have much or want to see a city that can net the injustices of the past and move this city forward would support him, because we just need a new paradigm right now. That on paper where it says Tampa is great, it is suffering. A lot of people is suffering, and I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
Connie, thanks as always for listening, and thanks for all you do in our community.
Connie Burton.
We were just talking about that affordable housing fund. Well, the motion mostly came from Connie and several others advocating in public comment before city council. And it shows that if you have representative government that's really listening to you, you can make changes and adapt to what the community needs. So thank you to Connie for her advocacy.
Bill, I read that there are 30,000 new residents in the city that over the recent years, new neighborhoods, Water Street, downtown, a lot of young voters. North Hyde Park.
A lot of young people. Will they be young voters is a different question.
Good question. West River. So I guess these, sadly, the local elections usually have a very low turnout. I don't know that it will be that way this time, but let's say it's 15%. How are you going to reach the new people as well as the people who've known you in South Tampa for so many years?
The way we've always reached out is through grassroots. I started as a grassroots activist. I was a neighborhood leader and, helped form Catholic on Tampa, which is a open source forum every Friday to talk about issues Our philosophy is my philosophy, which is everybody's invited. There's no membership. There's no selection committee. There's no minimum fee. Anybody can attend it. If you can't afford, we let you in free. And so we literally have millionaires next to homeless people. And people have come in and found jobs and found their future spouse and all kinds of things. But one of the things that's held Tampa back is that we have these silos where they say you have to pay $50,000 to join an organization and you can't get in unless a small group approves you. And that's what holds us back, because everybody should have access to the same information. Everybody should have access across the board. We have some new technology tools we'll use, but we are going to continue to be involved in the grassroots. And one of the questions I ask candidates is, what have you been doing in the last 8 years? What have you been involved in? I've started 3 nonprofits that are affecting the lives of hundreds of people in the community. It's one thing to have a position. It's one thing to use your position of authority. I put my own money and my own time in to, despite being on council, having a job, and having kids. Every week I'm helping to pick speakers for Catholic on Tampa and promoting it. Same thing with the Arts Alliance. And I'm on several other boards. What have people really been doing in the community? If you haven't seen them, if they just show up at events, but they're not actually rolling up their sleeves and helping the community and working alongside you to clean up a retired disabled veteran's house like we did a few weeks ago, then why should they deserve to be in a public position? If they don't care about the community before they get in office, they're not going to care afterwards.
So I want to talk about regionalism a little bit. It seems like every time there's a big election, local election, mayor's election, we talk about regionalism, and then it sort of drifts away. And with all due respect to Mayor Castor, I don't necessarily see her having taken the role as a regional leader. And I don't know if her predecessor, Mayor Buckhorn, can't remember if he did or did not, if the perception was there that he was the regional leader.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah. But, do you think that's important? I mean, the city of Tampa is only 400,000 people out of the region, which is a couple of million people, depending on how you define it. So do we deserve to be the regional leader? We are the largest single city in the area. St. Pete's a close second.
I've never lived in St. Pete, and I've never had an office in St. Pete. But in St. Pete, every door has been open to me for 30 years, and I've been very involved in the leadership structure there because they welcome me to be involved and they listen to new ideas, and that's how a community moves forward, by including everybody. And the thing that, from St. Pete's perspective, is that they're equal to Tampa. And if we think of St. Pete or Clearwater as little brothers or little sisters, we're never going to be successful at having regionalism. We need to look at them as equals, and we need to partner with them. There are lots of decisions that we need to think of with them in mind, and I could give you many examples of ones I've worked on. But St. Pete wants to partner with us. And I worked years ago on T-BARTA as a client. I worked to create Tampa Bay Water. One of the best regional leaders we ever had was Ed Taranchik. He and Steve Seibert personally put together Tampa Bay Water with Jerry Maxwell. It's the best example of regional cooperation in the world. And the last administration in Tampa tried to change the state law to undo it. And so we instead of playing power politics, we need to look at the best models for how we can work together. Is regionalism important, Bill, and why? I think it absolutely is, because we need to work together with one force. An example of anti-regionalism is about 8 years ago, the Tampa EDC, Economic Development Council, changed its name to Tampa Bay EDC. I think you were still on council then. And we voted to ask them to change it. And they sent a letter back to us and also to Mayor Kreisman in St. Pete at the time and kind of said, F you, we're going to do whatever we want. Well, in St. Pete, that had a chilling effect. One of the first things that I would do is tell the EDC, it's a private organization, you're not getting $1 of city money until you change your name back. Because the Tampa Bay brand should be owned by the region, not by a single organization.
Mm-hmm. What's your proudest moment on city council?
Getting the arts initiatives passed was a great one. Getting which John was very worked. We couldn't talk because of sunshine, but we worked across the dais on, and then getting the housing fund passed. But the really big one is we killed toilet to tap 4 times. I helped kill it once before I got on council, and then 3 times on council. and it's going to come back again. One of the 11 candidates wants to bring it back. It's not necessary. And you think about whatever your water rate is today. Let's say it's $100 a month, you would have to pay, if that had gone through, you'd be paying $400 a month just for water, and you'd be drinking potty water. And it's not necessary. If you believe in regionalism, work with Tampa Bay Water. Instead, they were trying to dismantle Tampa Bay Water so that the city of Tampa would be forced to drink potty water. And there are places, Israel, Singapore, others drink potty water. There's nothing scientifically wrong with it. But why should we pay for it when we don't need it for 100 years?
So speaking of regionalism, a big regional issue right now is the Tampa Bay Rays. Of course, they spent the last, 20 years in St. Petersburg. Now they're looking to move to Tampa, which personally, I think if they're going to move and if they're going to stay in the Bay Area, I do think Tampa is a better location. But at the same time, the new owners of the Rays want approximately $1 billion from local government, $750 million from the county, and $250 million from the city of Tampa. You will be there over the next X number of months, and you will likely have to take a vote on this if a vote comes, if the mayor presents it to council and a vote comes. Have you taken a position on the raise and on that $250 million?
We talked about it last night at City Council, and the feedback we got was that the city administration is still in the midst of negotiating, so we don't even know what the deal is. We can't say yes or no to anything right now. We have scheduled 3 public hearings starting on May 4th, where the Rays will present. Hopefully the city also will present. We asked the county, but they didn't want to be a part of it.
Have the new ownership approached you privately, taking you to lunch, or I know what they do. They take you to lunch and they schmooze you up a bit, and
I don't let anybody buy me lunch or coffee. In fact, I bought coffee for them. I don't remember if I bought lunch for them, but nobody buys me lunch or coffee.
All right, but they do come around. I mean,
for example, the last proposal for Ybor City, I had met Stu Sternberg just briefly, but I never sat down with him. With the two main owners, Ken and Patrick, I've met with them together, I think 3 times, and I've met with Ken maybe 3 or 4 more times. And I've told them from the beginning that I don't know whether I'm going to be a yes or no. And I said I don't want anything. I think the Rays are important for Tampa, for Tampa Bay. And if there's a way that we could work it out, we could. There are obviously a lot of challenges with the funding. But here, one of the questions about regionalism is a lot of people in Tampa think, for example, that it would be great to have it at the fairgrounds or in Ybor. Right now, without the Rays, it takes people in St. Pete an hour and a half to get from downtown St. Pete to Ybor. If the Rays were there, it would take them 2.5 hours.
Yeah, traffic is...
And look at the main support group for the Rays over the last 30 years has been the people of St. Pete, the businesses in St. Pete. They would lose that. The people in St. Pete, because they're used to going to Steinbrenner Field now, they say, look, this Drew Park place is an okay place. That's kind of the eastern border. And so the Rays took into account that they want to reach new audiences in Tampa and East, but they want to keep their base in St. Pete, which I think is really important. Why would you just throw that base away? And then the other thing is they're going to build a new campus for Hillsborough College, which
somebody's going to build it.
The president and the board of Hillsborough College want to do, because there will be potentially synergies. The question is about the money and what's the opportunity cost of spending the money. So we'll be listening to the public starting on May 4th, public hearing, and then there'll be 2 more after that. And so anybody who has a position, email us or please come, and we'll hear the data and we'll hear from the public, and then we'll decide what to do.
Do you have a prediction in terms of whether or not this Rays project in Tampa along Del Mabry is going to work?
It changes every day. By the way, if it was in Ybor, I would be a definite no. If it was in Fairgrounds, I would be a definite no. Ybor doesn't need it. Ybor is a place that's already being developed, and I think Daryl Shaw and his partners are being really careful about focusing on history. The area around Drew Park is an area that needs redevelopment. Most of the studies show that there's not really a real economic impact from sports teams, but in that area, not just with the real estate development, but what could come beyond it, there could be economic impact.
Well, Drew Park has its own CRA, and which clearly would take off like crazy if that was built there. Lynn?
We're in the studio today with Tampa City Councilman Bill Carlson, who's filed to run for mayor of Tampa.
And that election is March of 2027 with a runoff in April. Go ahead, Lynn.
And you're listening to Down and Dirty. That was John Dingfelder just fussing at me. And
Never.
And if you want to join the conversation, the phone number to call is 813-239-9663, 813-239-9663. And we'd love to hear from you. I'm sure Bill would too. And Johnny, do we have any calls?
We do have a caller, Skip. You want to bring Mike in Sarasota up, and he wants to talk about one of our favorite subjects, Bill, preemption. Mike.
Hey, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for taking my call. I'm interested to hear Bill Carlson talk about this concept of regionalism. And as you forecasted, I want to talk about how the state of Florida, the legislature, has taken many steps, and too numerous to count over the past few years, to not allow localities to adopt policies, either of local or even regional impact. So my question to Bill Carlson is, what steps would you take to work with our local legislators to limit further preemptions that affect Tampa Bay?
Yeah, one thing first on regionalism, back in the 90s, I was on the board of leadership Tampa Bay, and it was, I think, 6 counties at the time, and the board voted to take out Sarasota and Manatee, and I was the only one who voted to keep them back in. I think they still are part of the Tampa Bay partnership, but many people in Sarasota and Manatee think of Tampa Bay as a place north, not that they're a part of it. And so I think we can do a better job in that area of trying to build regional unity. Again, we can't do it from a big brother point of view. We have to do it as a coalition of equals. To the preemptions, I took a class in graduate school on devolution, and this is whether the federal government should control everything in the states or whether states should have their own ability to build laws. And I believe that the main argument for this is innovation. At the beginning of the class that I took, everybody was against it, and by the end, I'd convinced everybody to be in favor of it. Because if you live in a city if you live in Ybor City and you believe in historic preservation, I think you should have the right to support that. The state should not be able to come in and tell you can't preserve your area. No, with Live Local, somebody now could build a 40-story building in the middle of Ybor. And that's, if we...
The same thing with trees. Tampa had a very strong, probably one of the strongest tree ordinances in the state, and the state comes along and preempts the city of Tampa from enforcing our tree
because
ordinance.
A legislator in Sarasota was mad that his local government wouldn't let him tear down a tree. It's just because a legislator pitches a fit shouldn't cause that. So what I would do is do what Bob Martinez did, and he worked closely with the state legislature. That was back when Tampa was the business capital of Florida, and I think we need to return to that.
The next great city.
But Tampa, we were the great city in Florida. Think about in the 80s, Miami was not the capital of Latin America. We had the chance to do it. There were some pieces that were holding us back. You all know that I worked with Jason Busto and Steve Burton and others to turn around our airport.
That's right.
And our port. And now our airport and our port are modernized. Because of those that was way before I got on council. By fixing those, and then we have a few other things to fix, we can make ourselves a truly international city that connects to our roots. But anything that we want to change, we need to work closely with Tallahassee. I'm on the board of the Florida Chamber Foundation and also Florida Tax Watch because it's important to stay connected to the people who are influencing the legislature.
Well, Mike, thanks for calling in. Thanks for listening.
Yep.
So, Bill, you sort of touched on a hot button. The city of Tampa elections, the mayor, city council, are nonpartisan, okay? But in reality, you're a Democrat. I don't know if all the candidates so far who filed are registered Democrats. I would guess most of them probably are. I'm going to call this next question Profiles in Courage. So let's jump back a few months ago to some sort of tragic events that were happening in Minnesota, in Minneapolis specifically, where the president came in force with ICE and National Guard troops and everything else, really pushing his way into a city where he was not welcome at all. And I was very happy to see a mayor up there, two mayors actually, Minneapolis and St. Paul, jump in and not necessarily in a partisan way, but just jump in and say, we don't want you here. We're going to support our people, go away, and that sort of thing. And then ultimately the people rose up around those sentiments, and also the governor in Minnesota was very involved. Okay, long question.
Is there a question here?
Where's the question mark, right? Anyway, the point is this is reality. I think Mayor Castor has intentionally kept a very low profile to kind of stay away from that sort of thing. But at the same time, there's a lot of folks in the Hispanic community here who are being impacted by ICE, and that could get worse. So what does a mayor do about that, or more specifically, what does Mayor Carlson do about that down the road? Question mark.
You have to stay in touch with everyone, for one thing. You have to, in that case, you'd have to stay in touch with the federal government, your lawyers, state government, and figure out what the narrow path is about what you're able to do. If you make yourself into a martyr and you get thrown out, then you're not helping anybody, because you can't. They'll replace you with somebody who will have their same philosophy.
You mean get thrown out by the governor?
Yeah,
who has the ability to do that.
Yeah, well, he threatened Jane Castor.
But an example is during the George Floyd protests. I was on the phone with some of the leaders of the protest movement. I was on the phone with the police. And I was asking everybody to keep calm. I was also asking the police chief at the time to tell us where were they going to protest, because we needed to tell the neighborhoods what was going to happen. Do people hide in their houses? Or they take water out to the protesters? How did they do it? Same thing. A couple years ago, there were protests of the Jewish community and Palestinian communities, and I was on the phone with both of them at the time, trying to keep peace. There had been a demonstration in Temple Terrace where a Jewish person got hurt, and then the Palestinians were marching with 400 people in downtown. I talked to the Jewish community, and they said, we're standing down, we're not going to engage. I called the Palestinian leaders and said, they're not going to engage. You guys you guys can march without worrying about that. And then I said, do you know the new police chief? And they said no. I introduced them to Burkaw, who was the new police chief, and instead of thinking of the police chief as an enemy, the police chief worked with them to keep them safe. And whether or not you agree with any of these sides, that our ultimate goal is to make sure that the people in Tampa are safe, and that the kids going to the synagogues or the mosques or wherever are safe in our community.
So that's how Mayor Carlson would do it, sort of behind the scenes collaboration.
There are things you can do in front of the scenes too, but my point is that I was not in a position of authority. I was just trying to do the right thing behind the scenes, because I had worked in St. Pete when the protests happened in the 90s, and those kinds of protests go international and create an impression of a city that is not always indicative of what the city is normally like. And the more we can do to have a civil discourse to discuss the issues, try to negotiate a better way for everyone, the better.
All right. So we have another call. Callers are welcome to join us and join the conversation, 813-239-9663. We're here talking to City Councilman in Tampa, Bill Carlson, who is running for mayor. Tony in South Seminole Heights is concerned about a lack of drinking water. Tony, you're on.
Yes. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Thanks for listening.
I have a question about this drinking water. What kind of solution do you have? Will you create some kind of study organization? I mean, it's statewide, but what will you do as a leader of Tampa to take care of this?
What is your concern, Tony? That there's not going to be enough drinking water, or that you don't like toilet to tap? What's your concern?
Yeah, is it quality, or is it how much you have of it?
The amount of drinking water. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've got water restrictions right now, but as far as I can see, watering our lawn or not watering our lawn, limiting it, is not the really greatest solution for it. Should we be limiting housing and building in our city? Are they going to increase the rates? How are we going to deal with this? We've got a lot more people than before. As far as I can see, is we just have a higher and higher usage of water.
So
all right.
Development...
Tony, thanks for calling. We're going to get an answer from Bill Carlson. Go ahead.
Yeah, development to a great extent, is preempted by the state. In fact, after the hurricanes a couple of years ago, they passed, I think it's called Senate Bill 190, which says local government cannot pass any more restrictive rules on building. And so you're going to see, because of the state laws, again, it's important to go try to talk to legislators to get things changed. Brian Nathan now is a senator, and hopefully he'll get reelected in a few months. On water, I can talk as long or short about it as you want. If we're plugged into the region, which is Tampa Bay water, we don't have a shortage of water. Right now we have a temporary shortage because of the temporary drought. But Tampa Bay Water has a 20-year plan and a 10-year supply of water. There's plenty of new sources on the line in the future. And now the city of Tampa is finally collaborating with them. We can bring those new solutions online.
So thanks for that on the water issue. We've only got a couple minutes
I saw
left.
it's going to rain for the next 5 days, too. That'll help.
Well, that should help, because I've been tempted to turn on our sprinkler for our brown yard, but maybe I won't have to.
Leave your car outside so you won't have to wash it.
That's right.
My truck never gets washed.
We all know that.
Bill, I'm gonna jump into a little bit of criticism that you received. I think right after you filed, Florida Politics, actually it was right before you filed, Florida Politics criticized you for being connected to a C4 organization, a 501c4 organization. They called it dark money.
Yeah, what is that? What is that dark
headquartered
money?
out of your office on 7th Avenue. I think you deserve a right to respond to that.
Well, there are reporters and organizations that get paid by campaigns to write negative stories. And unfortunately, that now that the traditional media has been declining, that's what happens a lot. There are what they're talking about is a 501c4, and that's the same as the Tampa Chamber. I think the same as the Tampa Bay Partnership. They're advocacy organizations, and if they looked without a political hit, they would see that there are several that are connected to our organization. Cafe con Tampa's address is Tucker Hall. I didn't see them write about that. That's a 501c3. So there are many. Any 501c4 can support issues adjacent to someone. I hope there will.
You said the Tampa Chamber is a 501c4.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be a dark money organization.
No, they're advocacy organizations. 501c4s can't directly support candidates. They can only support issues. And we're going to be creating more because there are community efforts that we want that we need to put together in our community that aren't related to my campaign. So
on a humorous side note, I've been calling you versus Bob Buckhorn King Kong versus Godzilla, just in jest. But I also think it's real to a certain extent because you guys are the big dogs in this race so far. There's rumors about Bob Enriquez, the property appraiser who's been around a long time in a lot of different capacities, including state representative from West Tampa, joining the race. That would be a third, character, Godzilla, King Kong, and I don't know what we're going to call Enriquez if he gets in. But anyway, what's your feeling on Bob Enriquez?
Bob Enriquez has been a friend for a long time. He's a great person. I've supported him for all of his most recent campaigns, carried signs for him, donated money to him. I met with his wife a couple days ago. If he gets in, again, it'll be another great voice. We need to make sure that the positive voices of Tampa are heard and that the great new ideas are heard and that we don't get dragged into dirty politics, which we've seen before. You know, the last race I was in, I spent $150,000, and the current mayor, last mayor, raised $1 million to run negative ads against me, and I still won 60%, thanks to many of you listening for the strong grassroots effort that we had. And we'll do it again. We need to mobilize the grassroots.
You're not intimidated by Buckhorn's $2 million PAC?
Well, the one great thing is that if you look at any of the recent races, the people with the most money lost. And look at the race with Brian Nathan. He was outspent too. And yeah. I was outspent 8-1 on my campaign, and they ran negative ads every day. Even if they run 2 million or 3 million in negative ads, we can still win because we have to have strength in the people of Tampa, not the few who want to be in control and control everything.
You know, I think that's the wonderful thing about a local election like this is that you actually know the people. You run into them at the supermarket. You have access to them. You know who they are. You know where they've been. You've seen them at meetings, or you know what I'm saying. It's reachable. And unlike some of the national elections, the big money isn't always what makes the success.
Yeah, Bill Carlson, you get the last word this morning. Bill Carlson is he's on Tampa City Council. He's running for mayor. The election will be next March. And Bill, you got the last word. We're glad to have your mom in the studio. She looks like she's very proud, and she's done a good job. So
thank you all so much. And the final thing is, if you want a government where people get along, where government's focused on the public and goals that the public has, that's focused on customer service, where we collaborate not just locally but regionally, internationally, we'll be talking about running a better government over the next year.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. We look forward to having all the mayoral candidates on the show.
We've been conversing with Bob Buckhorn. It looks like he's going to join us soon. Lynn Hertak, Taryn Sabia, and another seven other candidates.
But thank you, Bill.